This is the Trigger Point Podcast, Episode 1, recorded on the 7th of August 2016. My name's Serena, and sitting across from me is my co-host, Peter. Hello, Peter.
Hello, everyone.
So, Trigger Point. I think we should explain probably what the show is about and probably why we came up with the name. So we are, well, essentially the reason why this is called Trigger Point is because every week or every month, depending on
my schedule or our schedule, mainly mine,
mainly yours, we will decide to read a book or watch a TV series or watch an anime or something of the sort. Probably I may be able to get Peter to watch a movie one day.
I'm not a moviegoer, just saying.
Yeah. And then we talk about it. And the show is the conversation that resulted or will result from that. So in our first episode, we will be talking about Ender's Game, the book, and a bit about the movie. Reason being is because I recently found out that Peter has never read the book, hasn't watched the movie, never heard of it, and never heard of Awesome Card. So
much to the big surprise of Serena.
Yes.
First reaction, well, how the hell can you not know about this at all? I'm like, I just don't.
Like, I mean, if they didn't make a movie out of it, I could explain, I could understand, but they made a freaking movie about it.
A lot of shows get made into freaking movies. A lot of books get made into freaking movies. Doesn't mean that I know half of them, okay?
But there's Harrison Ford.
Also, there's a lot of movies with Harrison Ford that I don't watch either.
Really? You've never watched the was it? Jeez, my mind's just gone blank.
Yeah,
Dispensables. Expendables. Sorry. That's terrible.
No, I didn't watch The Expendables.
Oh,
No.
I'm guessing you didn't watch number 2 either.
No. No number 3, which I think there was. Was there? Anyway.
I can't remember.
Okay, anyway, yeah. I don't watch a lot of films. Oh, in saying that, I did go watch a film yesterday. Ta-da!
Yes, which I haven't watched yet. Suicide Squad. Don't spoil it for me. Okay. So, yes, Ender's Game. But before we begin, I think we should let our audience know what kind of books we normally read so that they know what our tastes in books are like. So, what do you usually read, Peter?
Okay, so I don't have a lot of time to read these days.
You don't have a lot of time for anything, actually.
But I do enjoy a good YA novel. In particular, I love reading Scott Westerfeld's stuff.
YA being young adult.
Yes. I do like reading sci-fi fantasy, probably more on the fantasy side. I'm actually quite limited in the sci-fi verse, as can be seen from not knowing who, Orson Scott Card is, and not knowing anything about Ender's Game. In terms of fantasy, I love reading stuff from Robin Hobb. So a lot of the Assassin series was a good one. Magic Ship series, which I like, which Serena doesn't. It was a great series. I don't know why you don't like it. Anyway,
that's another conversation for another time.
So yeah, I love reading Robin Hobb, and I also like reading action books. So one of the great writers that I like reading is Matthew Riley. So he's done. He's actually got a new book coming out soon. I think. But anyway, Seven Ancient Wonders. He's got his Scarecrow series. They're all really brilliant. Think Mission Impossible, but in book form. That's what it's like. But it's really engaging. It's really exciting. I know it doesn't sound like it's exciting.
I don't read those books. I don't know.
But it's surprisingly. It is just action packed, and you can just imagine those things happening on screen. You can kind of read it as a screenplay in some ways.
Yeah, then in those situations, I'd rather watch the movie.
but it gives your mind the ability to imagine these things. Use your brain to imagine. That's what our brains are here for.
Well, that's why I read any other books. I can imagine, wizards blowing things up.
Anyway, so those are just some of the things that I enjoy reading. What about you, Serena?
Okay, well, I also like reading young adult books. So when you said Scott Westerfield, I completely agree because I love the Uglies series. In saying that, there's a lot of terrible young adult books out there.
But you still read them.
I also read because I love complaining about them. I love ragging on how terrible there's a series by Kiera Cass. I think the series is called The Selection. I think it is. It's think The Bachelor, but in book form. It's really
brilliant already.
It's really terrible, but I love complaining about it. The reason why I even bought the reason why I bought the series was because of the pretty front cover. If you go on Goodreads, you actually see a lot of people have the same response. They've read it and still read it because of the pretty covers, even though they hate the story. It's just so
the
terrible.
cover is so pretty. I can't help but read this.
I know. It's terrible.
Actually, this is quite normal for us. One of the other reasons why we actually decided to do a podcast in the end was because we love to complain about things and love to...
Yeah, so even though we might be watching, we'll be recommending TV shows and animes to each other, it doesn't mean that we're recommending good stuff.
Oh, yeah, totally.
We might be choosing things specifically because we know the other person would completely hate it. So just fair warning that this is not about
recommending good shows and recommending things to watch. We'll recommend things to watch, but probably not for the right reasons sometimes.
No, definitely not. But if you like complaining about things as much as we do, or if you like listening to people complain as much
we are here to help on that front.
Hey, I love reading terrible reviews. I love reading reviews on Goodreads, ragging on books that I hate. Because I like to know that I'm not the only one out there who hate these books.
It's like, surely someone must agree with me with how crappy this thing is.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so... I also, let me continue with what other books I like to read. So I do read sci-fi and fantasy. I read more sci-fi than Peter does, but it doesn't mean I read a lot of them. I'm not into really hard sci-fi fiction. Sci-fi fantasy books, I recently enjoyed John Scalzi's Red Shirt or Ready Player One. That's the kind of sci-fi I like reading.
Light sci-fi.
Light sci-fi. In saying that, I am going to try the Expanse series because of the TV show that's coming out. But I know that would be a little heavier, on the heavier side. And then with fantasy books, I am more along the lines of, again, not hardcore fantasy, not high fiction, more like Dresden Files by Jim Butcher, which is based in paranormal, urban paranormal, which is based in current times, talks about a wizard who's also a private investigator. So that's fun and interesting in that way. And I've recently gone to Inkshares, which is think Kickstarter, but for books. And I like trying to find the gem in a lot of non-gem books.
I think this doesn't. We actually do read quite a bit of fan fiction as well.
Fan fiction, yes. There's a lot of fan fiction that I read, and not all of them good.
Yeah, I think that comes with the territory with fan fiction, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, but there are some good fan fictions out there, and I think there are times when we will recommend some fan fiction
really good ones
that actually not only does it not only is the characterization right, it's also done in a way that you actually wanted how the story to go as well. So
yes.
That's when fact fiction actually becomes enjoyable, because someone's writing exactly how you want the story to head, but then it actually does it well. And I think that's when in the midst of all the crap there is, you will find that one that just gives you hope that, some people can still write properly.
We might actually one day do, what is it? East of the Sun, West of the Moon. If you ever get around to it.
Yeah,
the 30 chapter...
West of the Moon, East of the Sun.
Yes, West of the Moon, East of the Sun. A 30 chapter Buffy fan fiction. If you ever get the time to read it, we might be able to talk about that.
Yeah, that's on my to-read list, but rather on the low end, low priority end of it, unfortunately.
We might be able to do it in a year or so, maybe. Maybe
2018, maybe that looks promising.
I think we should also explain to our listeners what we mean by reading, because we
we had a big discussion, a big disagreement with this part.
I don't think it's a disagreement. I'm not going to force you to read the way I read, as long as you don't force me to read the way you read. Because Peter lives in the 1980s. For him, books are still made out of dead trees. He still likes reading in bed with a big, thick book that if it falls on him, it will break his nose. In saying that, I guess if I read on an iPad, it will also break my nose. But I like listening to my books. I don't have enough time. Well, Peter doesn't have enough time either. But I know that since I don't have enough time, I need to make time somehow. So all my reading is now mainly via Audible. So I read audiobooks, or listen to audiobooks.
Yeah. See, listening to audiobooks. You've corrected yourself. Great, Serena. Thank you for acknowledging that. You're listening to books. You are not reading a book. Reading in terms of, using your eyes to see word that's written on the page. That constitutes as reading. Listening is not the same as reading. They're two different skills, okay?
Well, no, that's why I've decided to do a lot more of the Whisper Sync thing, where you could buy the ebook as well as audiobook in the same go. And so you're listening to the audiobook while you're looking at the words, if you had the time, which would help us with our podcast, because there's sometimes quotes and stuff, so I need to see the actual words on the page. But yeah, I needed to say that because when we compare about our experiences in, with certain books, I might take the voices into consideration.
Yeah. Which I guess for me, that's one other reason I don't actually enjoy. Well, not that I don't enjoy. Why I try to steer away from audiobooks is because at the end of the day, it's someone else reading to me, and it's their, in some ways, it's their interpretation of what
the character sounds like.
What they want you to hear, and I don't want someone's interpretation to be forced on what I'm reading. Like the good thing about when I'm reading a book is I'm coming from a completely blank slate. The voices, that's how it sounds to me is in my head. That's what, to me, that character is.
Yep.
As soon as I hear some other person using their voice to talk or say something in that sphere, I'm gonna have their voice stuck as the character, and I don't necessarily agree with that because it's not my interpretation of the book. It's not how I would read the book. No matter what you're doing, no matter how you say it, certain intonations, inflections when you're speaking does change how certain things come across in the book. While I'm reading it, I can control that in my mind. Whereas if someone else is reading it to me, I'm forced to use their interpretation of that particular passage or that intonation. And so for me, I find if it's my first time reading something, I would find that quite annoying. It's distracting because it's not how it may be how I would read it anyway, but it may not be. And the fact that I just don't know that how I would have read it if I didn't have that voice initially kind of makes me go like, ugh, I don't really want to listen to someone reading.
So would you be the kind of person who'll also read the book before you watch the movie?
Definitely.
Okay.
I would never, if I can help it, I would never go, and if I have the time as well, which we've already come to the conclusion that I don't have a lot of, I would never try to watch a film without reading the original, if there was an original. In saying that, I wouldn't mind listening to an audio book if it's like my second reading of it.
Okay.
So once I've already read the book,
And established what these characters
are like in my mind, it wouldn't have the same effect if I listen to it a second time. So rereading, I would definitely think that can work. But the first initial reading, I still go with the book all the way. And there's nothing better than having a physical book in your hand to turn and flip the pages. There's just something soothing about that. Look, and not this, flipping your fingers on this screen. And ugh.
Look, I love paper books. I really do. I have way more paper books than you do at home.
I know, right?
Which is strange. But I also find that most of the books that I haven't finished these days are physical books because I just don't have the time to be carrying them around and reading them. It's just way simpler, way more convenient to read from my phone or to listen to an audiobook while I'm driving. I will never get through any of the books if I bought them in a physical format.
That's because you don't assign a time to just sit down and read.
No. There's no assigning. Once I start reading, I'd stop doing everything.
Yeah.
I have spent days reading a book and then I haven't ended up doing anything else. So if it was an audiobook, I could still do other things while listening to the book.
But then you're not paying attention to the book as well. You're spending half of your attention on the book and half of the attention doing whatever else you're doing.
No, you don't need to pay attention to washing the dishes or eating. In saying that, I had made a decision and I bought the Harry Potter the Curse of the Cursed Child in iBook format. Yeah, not the physical book. Like no.
So I was going to buy the physical book. I haven't bought it yet, but I'll probably buy it.
I don't know how I don't know whether
although in saying that because it's a script.
It's a script.
I feel like is it worth it buying it on the?
Well, you better buy it now because it's while it's still $20-something. It's going to be $45 when it.
Ugh, so expensive.
And no, that's the thing, right? It's a script, and I know that it's going to be harder for me to read than prose already. So do I want another barrier against it by having it being a physical book that I have to carry around to read? If I have it on my phone, I could read a couple of pages every now and then.
See, I can't do that. I think that's one of the reasons why I don't like reading ebooks as much because I don't like to read in short bursts. Yeah. Like if I read, I like to focus and read. So one of the which is why I love reading in bed because although that sometimes backfires because then I'll be, reading until 4 o'clock in the morning and then you're like, shit, I still have to go to work tomorrow. Awesome.
I've done that
multiple times, I'm sure. As I'm sure many readers would, and many of you would also have had the pleasure of doing.
I completely understand.
But yeah, I love actually spending time and just focusing on reading and do nothing but read and no music, no radio, no TV, no nothing, just me, the book, and I can just read. I enjoy that. So, and I think with an ebook, it just doesn't give me that type of comfort in some ways. No. Anyway, that's why I don't do ebooks. I probably will have to, sooner or later, just because I think Serena has a lot of books that she wants me to read, and she only has them in ebook form. So I'm probably forced to.
There's actually a few on my list right now.
So I probably have to force to actually go with the ebook sooner or later.
You might actually have to go into audiobook too, just so that you can get through the books I'm asking you to read.
Anyway, that's our little discussion point on what constitutes as reading. So
yeah, well, that gives you guys an understanding of what kind of books we like to read, how we read it, so you have a basis,
of what we like.
Yeah.
what tickles our fancy.
Yes. What floats our boat.
Okay, anyway, let's go back to
Ender's Game.
So I'm just going to give you guys a very quick summary. The book is about a boy, Ender, being trained to become the next commander for a fleet to save humanity from the alien invasion. So the book revolves him and his training and adults who try to manipulate him while he's at this battle school.
Yep.
Now,
But it's not just at the battle school.
not just at the battle school. He moves from battle school. He survives at battle school.
Yes, survives. That's what it is. Survives.
But then he excels
Yep.
because he is brilliant. And then he basically beats everyone, and it's no more of a challenge to him. So
Yep.
he then gets thrown to the command school,
Yeah.
where he goes up against these
Computer simulators.
computer simulations that has the odds stacked against him.
Yep.
And yet he still manages to win and finds a way to win these simulations.
Yeah. And it wasn't until the end of the last simulation that he finds out. That's the twist that we all find out. That every single...
Simulation that he's been playing while at the command school was, in actual fact, real. Like,
Yep.
everything that he's been doing was real. It was actually not a simulation.
It wasn't a training. It was
wasn't
actually
training.
a war.
He was, basically the adults have, lied to him and not let him know that he's been actually fighting the real buggers all this time, even though he was.
Yeah.
So my question, my first question would be, did you think it was necessary for the adults to deceive Ender like that? Did you think it was necessary for them to do that in the first place?
I thought it was. And in this book, Ender started this book when at the start of this book, Ender was 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And even after all the training and everything, I think he was only
12.
12? Yeah,
11,
yeah.
12, yeah.
Yeah. So he's still a child. And I don't think any sane adult would say, hey, let's tell this 12-year-old kid that every action he's going to make from now on would affect tens of thousands of people, if not millions. And those are only the people involved in the war, not the innocent human on Earth. Why do that? Why tell a child?
But the book has always kind of made the fact that Ender and his peers, like all his peers at battle school, they aren't normal children. They are brilliant. They are literally the brilliance of mankind, and they don't act like children. They've never acted like children. They've always learnt and they've always trained to be basically more responsible than you and I ever would be.
No, that's true. But
so did you think even with all that, it was still necessary for them to deceive Ender?
I think one of the things that's interesting in this book is even though these children are gifted, are commanders and soldiers and all of that, they are still distracted by the game. In battle school, you have the children fighting each other, like nearly killing each other for a ranking in the battle school and for the games in the battle room. And it's because they lost track of why they're doing this, that they're training for a war against buggers, that their enemy are not each other but the buggers. So the fact that they are getting distracted by mere games shows that no matter how gifted these children are, they are still children in some sense. And therefore, when it comes down to it, it's best to side with, a degree of
caution.
yeah. Like there's no disadvantage of not telling the children that this is real.
I guess in most cases I agree with that. It's just that when you look at the way the book describes Ender compared to everyone else,
that's true.
So,
yes.
For example, Dink, who's one of the characters, who's one of the first characters to kind of really teach Ender things at battle school, apart from Petra. he makes mention of the fact that that we are fighting against each other. Like, you know, the buggers, they're not real. You know, he has that belief initially, and he tells Ender that, and Ender actually goes back and thinks on that and go like, no, that's not true. Like, the buggers are real. This is still a threat. So I can see when you're saying that other kids are distracted, and they are. A lot of them are distracted by the ranking, by the fighting, but Ender isn't. Ender was always... He knew that, you know, that his ultimate goal isn't for these games, isn't for these the rankings. He understands that in some respects. I think he understands that something is much bigger is going to come, and he's going to have to be ready for that. I'm not saying that. I agree with the fact that you probably shouldn't have told him that they should have deceived him, because why risk everything just to see whether the kid can actually handle it when you can just kind of, you know, lie to him. I just think in the book, the way Ender was always described and the way he's portrayed, he's just that much more mature than what people give him credit for in the book.
Okay.
And the thing is, a lot of the times in the book, we see a lot of the reasonings to why they want to deceive him. In the book is always given through Colonel Grouse, like the adults who when
they communicate,
when they're communicating.
Yeah.
We see their reasoning in those spheres, so we're seeing from their point of view why they want to deceive Ender. But every time we look at the book from Ender's point of view, I don't see a kid that needs to be kind of coddled and shouldered, and they don't coddle him. Definitely,
they leave him out to dry most of the time.
Pretty much. I mean, given the fact that they already kind of push him to the brink where you have to fend for yourself, literally, every time that you think people, the adults, we're not going to help you. Yeah. He understands, like at that age, that the adults aren't going to help me. I don't know. I just feel like his portrayal in the book just seems like he's not the type that needs to be deceived to get something done.
Okay. Let's look at it this way. Instead of saying he needs to be deceived, perhaps we could look at this as the adult's one and only act of kindness towards him. Because if they told him the truth, if they told him, hey, every single one of these battles that you are facing is real, every life lost is, every ship that you lose are like thousands of humans who have been traveling for 70 years on this ship to go and fight the buggers, and you just destroy them. I would think that's quite a lot of
guilt for...
Yeah, like a lot of pressure on him. Pressure that probably, you know, by lying to him, then he doesn't have to worry about it, right? It frees him up to do the battle that he needs to do. It also frees him from having to make the decision at the end about genocide, killing an entire alien race. Like, he thought it was a game, and therefore he was free to make those decisions, to break the rules, to destroy the game so he could stop playing. And I mean, true, he does find out in the end that it's all real and all these people did die and he did kill an entire race.
Yeah, isn't that worse though? Like, I don't know. Like, in some ways, I just feel like if he had gone in knowing he's done that, at least he knows about it. He's prepared about it. Whereas now he's just kind of like, what? Now you told me that I actually just killed all these. I don't know. I don't know if I would say that's an act of kindness. I just feel like in some ways that's probably worse.
Well, no, it gives him an out. It gives him a way to say, I didn't know. I wasn't given the chance to make this decision. These were an adult's decision. I was just playing a game. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't
That
know.
was my look of it. Anyway.
Okay, well, that leads me to my next discussion point. Do you think, I agree that in some respects that deceiving Ender was probably a good idea, just because you don't want to risk him finding out and
Well,
probably
risk the human
race on a kid's reaction to knowing about this.
Yep.
But if Ender had known the truth, okay, so he knows that this final battle is fighting real buggers. All of these people are real. Did you think he would be able to still have pulled off what he did at the end of the book in managing to destroy the alien homeworld and saving humanity? Did you think he would have been able to do that?
I don't think he could.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the reason, because in the book there had been plenty of examples of Ender being quite ruthless in making sure he never gets attacked or targeted. Whenever he felt threatened, he would destroy his enemies.
Mm-hmm.
But in none of those situations have he ever went in thinking to kill these people.
See, that's why I have a very different perspective on it. I mean, yes, he doesn't go in with the intention to kill.
Yep.
But I don't think... I think, though, his intention is to not have to fight again.
Yeah.
That's always his intention. He goes into a fight or he goes into a battle wanting to not have to do this again.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So he will do whatever is in his powers to prevent the other side from being able to retaliate. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I don't see... Just because he doesn't have an intention to kill, if what it requires is the other person to be dead for that person to not have ability to retaliate, that is what he will do. So he doesn't go into it intending to kill him, but if that's what is required, then he will do it. And that's how I've always read Ender in Ender's Game. He's not the person. He doesn't try to. He doesn't try to excuse himself. Because that's never occurred to him. It's never occurred to him that he's going to kill the other person, but he will do it. It's just something that he's forced to do.
But he's never done it. That's what I'm saying. He's never intentionally killed.
But he has.
Not intentionally.
Not intentionally. But the fact that his action actually does lead to the death of two of the,
yes.
kids. And it just shows that even without intention of the intention of killing someone, his action will lead to the death of that person. So
he will kick them.
He will kick them where it needs to be kicked, and he will break whatever needs to be broken for that person to not be able to stand up. He may not even recognize, in some respect, that
that's what he's doing.
He's doing, but he will do it. And I think even if he knew, and I think actually when I was rereading it the other day, one part really struck me was when he was talking to Valentine again. I can't remember where it was. I think it was the first time I can't remember when it was. Anyway,
yep.
It was basically saying, was it talking to Valentine or was it talking to himself, thinking Valentine was there? I can't remember.
Okay.
Anyway, it was saying, I need to know my enemy to the point where he loves them.
Yeah, and that was when they were on the boat.
And that's when he truly understands that person.
Yeah.
And then he says, and that is when I will destroy them and pulverize and grind them. Like, yes, I can see why a lot of people are saying he is too good at heart. He won't do it because he loves that person, and you can't truly And I think that was the one thing that when the adults were talking about why they wanted to lie to him as well, is because they said if he truly loves that person, he would not be able to do what he did because he loves them.
Yep.
But Ender himself knows that. He knows that unless I love that person, I will never be able to destroy that person. So he knows that that's in himself as well. He knows that personally, I need to get to that point where I know and love the person before I know how to destroy them. And he accepts
but knowing
that.
how to do it doesn't mean you can, right? Here's the thing, right? It's one thing for him to think he knows what he can, what he needs to do.
Yeah.
It's another to be able to do it. Because even at the end, when he was deceived, he didn't destroy the bugger home planet to destroy the bugger home planet, even in the game. He's doing it because he was thinking it would break the game. It will break the system and he wouldn't have to play again. So he's already gotten to the point where he was drained and he was numb and he was sick and tired of the game, not even of the battles, not even of the fact that all these people were dying. He was just sick of having to play this game against adults. So I have a feeling that if he knew the truth, he would have burned out even earlier. Like, he wouldn't be able to face having to make that decision.
I don't know, but you're reading that from a very very logical, sane of what I would expect a kid to behave kind of way, though. But the thing is, Ender is not your average kid, and the thing is, I'm only basing all of this on how I read Ender in the book, okay, and I don't care what comes in his, in the sequels to the books. I'm ignoring all of that. I'm only reading Ender through this book.
Yep.
He knows himself much better than what the adults know him. He understands himself so much better. There's never one point where he where he questions himself, really. The only part where he kind of questions isn't even questioning about himself, is when he understands that when he kind of accepts the fact that he can be just like Peter. and when he understands that is who I can be, and not that he wants to be, he doesn't want to be. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest difference between him and Peter, is Peter wants to be that. He wants to be that ruthless and calculating and destroys everything. Ender doesn't, but he can do it. And I think that's the biggest difference. He understands that that's what he needs to do and that's what he will do, but he doesn't. But he has enough empathy to understand that that's what he is like. And I think for me, like when I'm reading Ender's Game, I just felt like every time the adults or the readers try to input what we think, how much he can handle, how much Ender should be, what he's going to react, how he's going to react. It's all coming from a third person, so it's not from his point of view. And I just feel like there's no one that understands better him, that understands Ender better than himself. And even, yes, he is a kid, he is, young, but he's not a normal kid. So you can't use a normal kid's... I mean, normal kids don't go into battles that, in the first place. I don't know. I just feel like I always had the feeling that Ender would have been able to do it, even regardless of the fact that he knew the truth. I think he would have still been able to have pulled off what he did, because he understands that that's the only way that I don't need to play this game again. And I think it's in a bit slightly different contrast to what you're saying, because like you're saying he only played the game, that last game, that way because he was sick and tired of the game.
Yep.
But I think he would be able to come to the same conclusion if that was the only way. He didn't need to play that game again.
If he didn't have to fight.
Again. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That's my opinion. I'm in a very strong camp that I believe that Ender would have been able to do he would still be able to do what he did, even had he known the truth. And from what I can read in this game, there's nothing to suggest to suggest opposite.
Well, fair enough. I mean,
I know, I have a very strong. I get very heated when I go.
well, no, and I think that's the reason why it was written the way it was, because if you had to make that decision, if you had to kill, destroy a whole race, we might not feel as much sympathy towards him.
That is true. That is true. But we're not talking about the sympathy part. All I'm talking about is whether he could do it or not, and I think he can.
Well, we wouldn't know.
That is true. We wouldn't know. But anyway, so that's our little discussion on Ender's Game.
Yeah. Well, two questions we had regarding the book anyway.
Well, the two questions that we felt fairly we had a bit of disagreement, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, so we can't really talk about the book without talking about the movie, because Peter rushed out and watched the movie after reading the book. Wait, how long did you wait before you...
I finished the book in... I think I started book at 8 o'clock that night.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't sleep until 3. It's a bad move. Because I had work at 7 a.m. the next day. So I had 3 hours of sleep. It's fine. Got to work, was dead at work, and then rushed home. Finished reading the book, I think at 7 the next night.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the book that much that you were willing to sacrifice
I did it
sleep.
and it's been a long time since I've been so engrossed in a book, so I really enjoyed it in that sense. And then after...
That's my goal in life, to introduce books and TV series or whatever to you that would result in you not sleeping.
Well, you're 1 for 1 so far. Anyway, and so I finished reading Ender's Game at 7 o'clock p.m. And then I remembered Serena saying, "Oh, there was a movie about it." And so I had a quick dinner, and then I went and watched the movie straight after that. So I had an Ender's Game marathon in the 12 hours, or in the 24 hours. I finished the book and the movie. It's brilliant. Loved it.
And so here's the question. Did you like the movie? I know the answer to this already.
Yeah. Look, on my first, when I was first watching the movie, I hated it. There were the problem with me. That was not the problem with me. The problem for me with regards to the movie was the time frame. The time frame was all over the shop. In Ender's Game, Ender starts off the book as a 6-year-old, and everything that happens in Ender's Game happens within 6 years. You get to see him develop his leadership skills. You get to see him develop his ability as a commander. You get to see him develop his trust in his platoons. You get to see him interact with his friends. I don't want to use the word friends because they're not really his friends, but
That's a terrible thing to say.
he doesn't really have friends there. He's respected over there, so you can't really have friends like that. Anyway,
Yep, okay.
That gets completely lost in the film because obviously they can't really show 6 years worth of training, and so what happens is the film kind of truncates all of the training and development of Ender as a character into this 1 hour segment that just kind of goes 1 second he's this young, scared, new kid on the block, and then it's 2 jumps later he's now commanding his own army. It just felt like, what happened? It's like, I know he was smart, like, and you know, but it doesn't show his development.
No.
And it really fails on that part. And that's, unfortunately for me, that was one of the most intriguing part of Ender, was seeing his development.
Yeah.
And seeing seeing him manifest himself from this young kid who doesn't know a lot to being able to manipulate and to, you know, to basically outgun everyone at battle school. That development just wasn't shown in the film. And for that reason, I hated the film when I first watched it. It just, every part I just started great. No disrespect to the actors. I thought a lot of them did really well. I really liked the actor who played Ender. I just thought that it could have been done so much better.
In saying that, I went into this movie with slightly different goals. I rarely ever think a movie made from a book is good. Unless the book was terrible. I've actually had a few situations. I've seen a few movies where the book was only so-so and the movie did a good job at fixing it. But in saying that, I walked into Ender's Game, the movie, hoping to see how they will... see how they visualize the battle room. Essentially, that's what I wanted to see. How they're going to build the battle room or the command school or the simulation. I wanted to see with our technology now what they could create and how pretty they could make it. And I mean, they did not disappoint in that. Apparently, the kids had training from Cirque du Soleil acrobats, so that they will know how to
land properly,
how to act while connected to wires, like they were when they were flying through the battle room. They were on wires, and these kids needed to be trained in that. So I liked the look of that. I especially liked how at the end of the movie, at command school, when Ender was controlling all his fleets to destroy the bugger hometown, he was surrounded in just pitch blackness. Right, his screen was 360 in a way, and he moves his hands. Like, he lifts his arms above his head and the screen, like that, his display shifts and tilts. And I thought that was amazing and really pretty to look at.
Oh, I in that sense, I completely agree. I do think visually the film did a great job with you know, depicting the battle rooms, with that final battle scene. There was a lot of great things visually about the show, and in some ways it helped. It helped me kind of visualize certain things that happened in the book, which I didn't kind of quite get when I was reading it.
Okay, which parts? Do you remember which parts you were having trouble?
The end when they're in the battle, in the command school, when they're in that group and they all kind of fight. When Enders is standing in the center. Initiating his directions to all the people. I just kind of imagine him to be sitting in this, you know, dingy cockpit with, you know, just headphones on. and it just didn't work very well in my head.
Well, in the book, that was what it was described as. Yeah, so I appreciate them upgrading the tech for the movie.
and having seen that, it just makes so much more sense. Like, it just seems so much better in a sense.
Yeah.
I still think that though the movie just could have been done better. Like.
Well, yeah, but I also see the struggles, right? Because Ender's Game is a very internalized book. Like, everything is happening inside Ender's head. And it's very hard to make that a movie.
I guess anything that has a lot of, like, internal monologues kind of hard to translate on the stage. But I don't know. That's why I was saying. I just felt like it just didn't give me what I wanted. The movie was good enough, and I think now that I kind of watch it again, it's not as bad because now I can just focus on the visual parts of it
and how pretty it looks.
But I still think it fails on the story part, and unfortunately, that's where it's important.
Well, that's probably because you had higher expectations of it than I did.
Yeah, true. I did rush into it straight after reading the book, so I had all the book's details still fresh in my mind at the time. So I was watching it and going like, that didn't happen in the book. This happened way later, or this person didn't say that. Yeah. Anyway, I guess that's one of the. So if that's it, if that's the things that don't watch the film straight after reading the book, you'll just get annoyed.
Since you weren't happy with the book, weren't happy with the movie, how would you change the movie to make it fit the book better? If we were to speculate, if you were to make the movie,
I guess if I was in charge of this, the first decision I would make is to actually not make this as a movie. Personally, I think Ender's Game just suits so much better in a serial format. So if it was done as a TV show,
yep,
it would have been you can get so much more out of the arcs. Like if you have like 20 episodes,
yep,
you have time to develop that transition from him being a kid and learning and slowly being able to build up that confidence, and then finally being able to master what he knows, and then be able to command. Like that progression would just seem so much more believable. Whereas in the film, because it was like truncated, bam, bam, bam. It's like I can't believe that. It's just like
yeah. But there's one part I would find would be problematic to make that. If you were to make it into a TV show, was that yes, there was a lot of parts where he was trying to create his army and train them. But once he has trained them, then it just becomes a series of fights. And if it was a TV show, at that point it would be like, do you just have a fight every episode? Or do you skip fights? Like, because the fights didn't matter as much anymore, right? It's not that they didn't matter at all, but it's very hard to make an episode.
Yeah, I don't think the fights would actually be even that involved at all. Like, because half the time when you're reading the book, they talk about them going into the fight and winning, and then coming out just feeling exhausted, and then having to do the next fight. So I would just more focus on that. It's like they've won another fight. Now they're put into the fight again and again and again. Yeah. That's that. I don't. And to be fair, the first good three quarters of the book is all at battle school, and it literally takes him 3/4 of the book for him to go from his young self to when he's being respected as a commander. And so I don't know, if I was random thought, I would kind of put episodes 1 to maybe 15 as all at battle school, and it'll be literally the first 12 episodes will be him developing as a character, and it won't until episodes 13, 14 where you'll actually see him commanding and being fight. all of that kind of brings him towards that goal of being able to fight, and then obviously the last 5 episodes, him doing his final battle at the end and winning at all costs and all of that. That's just kind of how I would imagine the progression to go. Like, I would just see his character development to take such a large part, and everything else to kind of take second to it. I don't know. That's just how I would kind of envisage it. But what about you? How would you have? I know you like the visuals already. But what else would you have done maybe differently in this show?
If I was to make that movie, I would probably start the movie off with Ender already on the shuttle on the way to battle school. So, you can have that opening scene where the shuttle is rattling. You have a close-up shot of his face, and then you zoom out and you see that he's actually in a shuttle surrounded by other children, and probably then that would be when Graf comes in and introduces himself and kind of introduce the audience to what's going on.
So
like, do that speech like, as you all know, and then explain about the buggers and all that stuff. And then as the movie goes on, as you have any personal time, when Ender's by himself, he will have the flashbacks of him leaving his house, of a flashback of his relationship with Valentine and Peter. Yeah. And do it that way, learn his backstory that way, whilst he is dealing with the other students. Like when Petra is helping him, that could trigger his memory of Valentine and how Valentine would try to protect him. When you have the multiple bullies at school.
Mainly Bonzo.
Bonzo, yeah. At Battle School, you can be reminded of the bully at school, or Peter. Although probably Peter would probably come in when he plays the video game. Yeah, the game yeah.
Well, why do you think? Like, obviously, the way the movie was structured followed very closely to how, like, chronologically anyway, how the book was written. So everything, it starts off the same, and it's like, did you think that maybe that wasn't such a good idea then to follow it chronologically like that?
Well, definitely, because you only had 2 hours, and Peter and Valentine, in the scope of that movie anyway, didn't mean much.
Yeah.
So why spend so much time on them?
Yeah.
They didn't need it.
Yeah, it's kind of like frustrating though, because like in the book, they played a very important, not integral, but important part of the book, because
they affected
Ender quite a lot. But in the movie, because as you said, we don't get to see a lot of his internal struggles. The brother and sister was kind of like they were just there.
yeah. They were there because they were there in the book.
Yeah, and it just didn't feel like they like. I can see why it would have been hard, because it's hard to kind of give them the time they deserved without taking away from the time that Ender, which is more important at the end of the day. So, but I agree. Having the brothers and sisters, it just didn't work in the film.
No. Well, you had to have them, just probably not in the order that they showed them.
Yeah, because especially when like trying to convince the audience how important Valentine was to Ender, it was just like I don't see the connection. Like I don't see that. And it's kind of like it's hard to kind of I don't know.
No, and that's perfectly reasonable, which is why the movie didn't work.
Yeah. Anyway,
I guess that wraps up our discussion of Ender's Game. So I guess I don't really need to ask that, since you actually read the book within 12 hours. Guessing you liked the book?
Yeah, I don't know what gave it away. The fact that I finished it in 24 hours, and I watched the film straight afterwards. Maybe that was an indication. Yeah.
Would you read more of his stuff?
If it was anything like Ender's Game, I would love to. But obviously, Serena's already given me a rundown of what the other books are like, and I have no interest in his other exploits. Especially, and personally, this is one thing I really don't like with when writers try to retcon a lot of their stories. It's like...
Yeah, unfortunately he does.
Yeah, and it's like, you've given me a story that was... okay, put it this way. I probably wouldn't find it as annoying if I didn't like the original story and you retcon things to fix it. I probably would be fine with it.
Yeah.
The fact that I really like the original and you're retconning things that will ruin it for me, then that's when I have a big issue. So, listening to what he does in some of his other books, I have no interest in reading his other books, and that's the end of that.
No, fair enough. I mean, I did read all of them, all the Ender ones anyway, and I read the Beans ones, which I regret.
See.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind some of Orson Scott Card's later books. Some of them get a bit preachy.
Just a bit.
Just a bit. So I guess it actually depends on the individual book. He does make me think, though. Some of his books make me think. Some of the ideas he brings up makes me think.
But you can always make people think without being preachy.
No, the ones that he makes me think, that the ideas there were good and they weren't preachy. Unfortunately, there are bits where he gets preachy and they infuriate me. And yeah, let's just not go into his
his political and his religious outlooks.
Yeah. Okay, so we've done Ender's Game. We've talked about whether you will read his other books,
which is a no.
Which is a no. So, what are you reading currently?
Or what I will be reading?
Yes. Or what is next on your reading list?
Because I haven't actually read a lot. I actually haven't finished a single book since reading Ender's Game, which was a good month and a bit ago.
Yep.
My next book to read is Hyperion by Dan Simmons. This was recommended to me by a colleague at work when he saw me reading Ender's Game. And he was like, oh, if you like Ender's Game, you should really read this guy's books. And so, yeah, that's my next to read. And you?
Okay. I have a couple because I sometimes start a book and it gets a bit slow or boring or of a theme that I don't like to read at that moment. Like sometimes I read a heavy book and then I feel like reading something light, so I stop reading the heavy book and dive into something fun or stupid. So I have recently got a notification that an author, A.G. Howard, had come up with a new book. Don't ask me what it is. I forgot what it is right now. And I had a look at what previous book I read of
her or his.
I'm not sure.
Girl.
I think it was her. And it was a book called Splintered. Mm-hmm. And it's a young adult book, and it's based in Alice in Wonderland.
Okay.
And normally that doesn't attract me. But this Alice in Wonderland is really dark. Like, it's not Alice. It's Alice's descendant.
Okay. And
the idea is that the females in her line are all mad, like slightly mad. Like the main girl, she can hear insects talk. And her mother is in an asylum. Mm-hmm. And
bright outlook, eh?
Well, no. The book starts off with the girl doing her art. She's an artist, like a student, and she's an artist, and she's doing her first one of her art pieces, and she's skewering dead bugs that she's collected onto her art piece, because she found out that it's only by killing bugs that she can only stop them whispering and talking by killing them. So I was reading, I'm like, hey, this is really dark and really cool. I want to read it.
Really disturbing.
It was really disturbing.
And I hope everyone can hear how excited Serena is when she's saying that. Just
No. I mean, the problem with a lot of young adult books is that sometimes they're a bit tame and a little bit too light and frivolous. And this one was, it felt gritty, and there was something there, and I wanted to read it. And I remembered the first time I read it, after I read it, I threw it away in disgust, because it started off gritty and disturbing and kind of
ended up
dark.
fairyland.
Well, no, the moment she entered
Wonderland.
because the world became so mad and weird and strange, the character became very normal, yeah. And I got a little disappointed by that. So I read it again, and it didn't bother me as much this time, probably because I was waiting to read all the pale and boring bits, and it was less boring than I remembered it being. So now I might go and read the second book, which I didn't actually do after reading it the first time because I was so disgusted by it. So that was my light and fluffy read. But I am also reading Paper Magician. That's a book I've been trying to get through for the past month.
I love how you're using this. I'm trying to get through this book.
Well, okay, here's okay. When you were talking about how you didn't like audiobooks because you didn't like how sometimes people put their interpretations into the book, unfortunately, the voice actor for Paper Magician really liked the whole British uppity kind of accent, like, oh, I'm kind of posh and a little up myself kind of accent, and she really lays it on thick, and it gets under my skin.
So why are you still listening or reading it? Because
I paid for the book and I want to get through it. So that's just on my list that I'll get back to every now and then, and we'll see how long that'll take for me to finish. And so that's my second book, and my third book on my list, because I finished Splintered and I need something else to read, because Paper Magician's not considered something I'm actively reading. This is another book I've read before, and I've forgotten enough about it that I think I could try rereading. It's called The Grisha, Shadow and Bone, and it's by Lee Bardugo, and it's a little different from most fantasy books I read because it's based in, I think it's Russian, I don't know. So some of the words and some of the phrases and terminology, it's based in a fantasy land, you know, in the fantasy world, fantasy timeline, but it's based in that kind of culture. So some of the words that they use are different, and the things that I visualize is different because the clothes that they wear, the things that they eat or drink or smoke or whatever, it's just slightly different, and also a kind of dark book.
I hope everyone feels like there's a recurring theme there.
No. I mean, come on. I read the one, the selection, the Bachelor remake book.
Yeah, and you didn't like it.
No, but I chose to read it. So, there are times when I read really frivolous books. Oh, yeah, and the Expanse. What was it? The Leviathan? Is that the Expanse book? I can't remember what it's called. Yeah, that's heavy sci-fi, and that's going to take me a while to get through.
Okay. Well, anyway, what is our next show going to be, Serena? What are we talking about?
Yes, we are wrapping up now. Yes, what are we... What next?
What next? What's next? Ta-da.
So, this first episode was Ender's Game. I suggested the topic. I made Peter read the book. So, the second topic...
I chose.
Peter chose, and it's an anime. It's called Arjin. And spoiler alert, I finished watching it in 2 days. So I liked it. And we'll talk about it
whenever we do our next recording, which at the moment will be a month away.
Yeah, we won't be doing the recording until September, but considering how this is our first podcast, I don't know how long it'll take for me to edit and publish. So this episode might not come out until a little later, so you probably don't have to wait a full month before you hear our next episode. So, well, there's that. I guess we should also mention that we would love to hear any feedback from you guys. We have chosen Arjun as our next topic, but we would always want to hear what books, TV, or anime you would want us to talk about. It would be great if you let us know what you think about, that said TV or book as well, so we have an inkling
of what it's like
when we go in, whether we would like it or not. And how you could contact us, Peter hasn't memorized all those methods yet, is you can contact us on Twitter or you can email us. We have a website, but since I haven't got that finalized, I'm not going to give you the URL yet. I'll give it to you guys on the next episode. But our Twitter is triggerpointfm, and our email address is triggerpointfm@gmail.com. Yes, email us, tweet at us.
Let us know what you like, what you don't like.
Yes.
What we can do better.
Yes. Suggestions for next show topic.
We're open for suggestions. Don't
Yes.
be shy.
Yes, and we look forward to hearing from you. And
Till next time.
till next time. Yeah.
Bye.
So bye. Bye.